In today's class, we are going to study about survey research and case studies. So, survey research is a kind of research study which came into existence to study opinions, attitude, and social facts. You may have read in newspapers or seen in televisions that during elections surveys are conducted to find out if people would vote for a particular party or not. So exit polls, I'm sure you are familiar with this term, exit polls. So before elections in news channels you see that exit polls are always conducted. So how do you conduct these exit polls? By getting people's opinions about their attitude towards a particular party, about asking a set of questions. So these kind of methods are used to collect opinions, attitudes of people to get information about a particular topic or a particular subject. Earlier, their main focus was to find out the existing reality, or which is also known as baseline. Okay, so whatever is already there, they used to find out that thing only. So they used to find out facts such as literacy rate at a particular time of a particular place, or religious affiliations or income level of a particular community or a particular group of people, etc. They also used to find out the attitude of people towards family planning, the attitude towards giving powers to Panchayati Raj institutions for running programs related to health, education, sanitization, etc. But however, nowadays it has evolved into a more sophisticated technique which helps in inferring various kinds of causal relationships. So before modern times, survey researches were simple. They only tried to find out things that already existed. Okay, but nowadays they also try to find out causal relationship between variables. You know what are variables, right? So nowadays it has evolved more, and now survey researchers are able to find out the causal relationship between variables. I think one example that I want to give is if you are watching a video in YouTube, before starting that video, sometimes a page used to come, skip survey. Maybe most of the times we just we skip the survey, but there is a question and there are options. So that is also a part of survey research. So now we have different platforms on internet, and survey researches are conducted through such platforms as well. Please go through box number 2.2. I won't read it out for you, but please go through it. There you will understand there is an example of survey method, how it was conducted, and what kinds of questions were asked, and how they were asked, and what kind of results were find out. Everything is given, so you will have an idea about it. Okay, so please go through it. And now I'm going to talk about how information is collected in a survey research. I already gave you an example of how information about survey researches are collected through YouTube as well, but then there are some other traditional methods also which we are going to study now. So they are personal interviews, questionnaires, telephonic surveys, and control observations. So we will look at it one by one. So now let us talk about the personal interview method, which is widely and frequently used method for obtaining information from people for survey researches. It can be used in diverse kinds of situations. So for example, you see a doctor taking history from a patient, so that is also one kind of interview. So an employer taking interview from of a prospective employee, it is also an interview. A salesperson interviewing a housewife to know why she uses a certain brand of soap, so that is also a kind of interview. In television also we see that in news channels politicians are called and other personalities are called to share their opinions, attitude, views on some particular issues, so that is also a form of interview. So during your board results, those who top board exams, they are also interviewed by media channels on how they have managed to top the examination. So this is also one form of interview. Okay, so um, what happens in interview, the one person, generally called the interviewer, asks the questions, and the other person, which is called the interviewee or the respondent, answers the questions related to a problem. An interview is a purposeful activity conducted to derive factual information, opinions, and attitude and reasons for particular behavior, etc., from the respondents. Okay, so if you take examples from news channels only, just now the example that I gave, you will be able to get it, like how interviews are conducted. Okay, so they gather information, factual informations, opinions, attitude from the respondents. Okay, so generally interview happens face to face, but sometimes it can happen over phone, and nowadays we have video calling system, so interviews can be conducted through video meetings as well. So now let us look at two kinds of interviews. One is your structured or standardized interview method, and the other one is unstructured or non-standardized. So um, uh, the first distinction is based upon the type of preparations we make before conducting the interview. So in a structured or standardized kind of interview, what happens is that the interviewer, the one who takes the interview, the interviewer prepares a set of questions before the interview. It has to be very structured. If 10 questions are supposed to be asked, then 10 questions only will be asked. Okay, so beforehand only they prepare a list of questions. The list is called an interview schedule. So a structured interview is one where the questions in the schedule are written very clearly in a particular sequence, and the interviewer has little or no liberty to make changes in the wordings of the questions or the order in which they are to be asked. So before the interview only they prepare the set of questions, and every word and everything whatever they have prepared before only they have to ask. They cannot change questions during the interview. Okay, so that is your structured or standardized kind of interview. So sometimes what happens is that and the questions which are supposed to be asked during the interview, those are beforehand given to the interviewee, to the respondent, that these are the questions that we are going to ask you, and you have to prepare. So it does happen in some media channels also. They already give a list of questions to the interviewee, that we are going to ask 10 questions within this time frame in an hour. So you have to prepare these questions, and we will ask these questions to you on national television. Okay, so this also happens. In contrast, in an unstructured interview, the interviewer has the flexibility to take decisions about the questions to be asked, the wording of the question, and the sequence in which questions are to be asked. Since responses are not specified in such type of interviews, the respondent can answer the questions in the way he or she chooses to, and such questions are called open-ended questions because you have the liberty to answer the way you want to. Okay, so and in these kind of interviews, the interviewer doesn't prepare the questions from before, so he or she has the flexibility and liberty to ask any kind of question that he or she wants to ask at that particular point of time, and the respondent also has to answer at that particular point of time because they are not given the list of questions from before, so they also have to give their responses accordingly, like at that point of time only, whatever they think, whatever comes to their mind at that point of time, their opinions, their attitude, they have to answer at that point of time only. An interview may have the following combinations of participants in an interview situation. So if you have seen an interview in TV also, one interviewer is interviewing a number of participants, or it can happen the other way around as well. Okay, so let us look at the combinations of how an interview can be conducted. So the first one is individual to individual. So in this situation, there is one interview who interviews another person. Okay, the second one is individual to group. So in this situation, one interviewer interviews a group of persons. One variant of it is called a focus group discussion. So there are types of individual to group interviews also. So one of them is known as focus group discussion. So you may have seen in TV interviews also, there is one journalist and he is interviewing a number of people in a stage. So or some other shows also, if you see some Bollywood show also, if you see, there is one interviewer and they have called other 2-3 celebrities. So this is individual to group. Okay, so the third one is group to individual. So it is a situation where one group of interviewers interview one person. So you may experience this type of situation where when you appear for a job interview. Yes, so a job interview, this situation happens. Okay, even in your college interviews also this can happen. I don't know if you have faced this kind of situation till now. Maybe in school interviews also you may have faced certain kind of situations. So where what happens is that you will go to give your interview and experts will be there to take your interview. Okay, so the third one is the fourth one is group to group. So it is a situation where one group of interviewers interview another group of interviewees. So this can happen in a situation where they are hiring a group of people together. So and a group of people are interviewing the interviewee. So in this situation this can happen, like take the example of a reality show. So there is a there are judges, a group of judges, and then a group comes. So there is a personal interview where the group of judges take an interview of one particular group. So this is an example of group to group interview situation. So interviewing is a skill. So interviewing is not very easy. I just want to interview someone, I will just ask a set of questions. It's not like that, okay? So interviewing is a skill which requires proper training. So interview has to know how to make the respondent feel comfortable and be able to answer the questions, okay? So if you have seen interviewers in an one-on-one interview or in TV, so he or she has to be skilled. So the interview method helps in obtaining in-depth information. It is flexible and adaptable to individual situations and can often be used when no other method is possible or adequate. So it can be even used with children and non-literate persons. An interview can know whether the respondent answers the questions and can repeat or paraphrase questions. However, interviews require time. Often getting information from one person may take an hour or more, which may not be cost effective. So in an interview, as an interviewer, you can make the interviewee comfortable at ease, and if the interviewee or the respondent is not understanding your question, then you can make the interviewee or the respondent understand the question. So even a non-literate person can also give an interview. So because the interviewer can make it happen. But again, although interviews provide very in-depth information, but it takes a lot of time. Interviewing one person can take an hour or 2 hours, and then it is not very cost effective, okay? Because you have to call so many people, arrange a meeting, so many things you have to do. So it can be costlier than other methods. So now let us talk about questionnaire survey. So questionnaire is the most common, simple, versatile and low cost self-report method of collecting information. So it consists of a predetermined set of questions. The respondent has to read the questions and mark the answers on paper rather than respond verbally to the interviewer. So in interview, what happens is that you have a face-to-face interview or over the telephone. There is one interviewer and interviewee, the respondent, or like I already said, there can be combinations of interviewers and interviewee. So it is usually face-to-face interview, but in questionnaire survey it is a self-report method. So in the beginning of survey research method, I mentioned about those surveys in YouTube that appear on your screen before watching a video. So those are your questionnaire survey. So if you want to fill it up, then you just fill it up and you submit it. So this is one example of a questionnaire method. So for example, if I am conducting some kind of a research and on students, okay, so I decide to send you all a set of questions through mail, and then you have to answer it and send it to me. So it will be a questionnaire, because I am not directly asking you the questions face to face, but rather than that I am sending you a set of questions and I'm mailing it to you all, okay? So that is one example of questionnaire survey method. So questionnaires can be distributed to a group of persons at a time who write down their answers to the questions and return to the researcher, or can be sent through mail. So generally two types of questions are used in the questionnaire: open-ended and close-ended. So with open-ended question, the respondent is free to write whatever answer he or she considers appropriate. So suppose I am conducting a research on study habits among students, so I give you a question on how do you manage your time at home to study. So this is an open-ended question. You all will have different kinds of answers, and whatever you want to write you can write, or whatever appropriate you think according to you is, you can write that answer. Okay, but if I ask you a close-ended question, in the close-ended type, the questions and their probable answers are given, and the respondent is required to select the correct answer. So example of close-ended questions require responses like yes, no, true, false, multiple choice, or using a rating scale. So if I ask you a question like you study for 8 or more hours, and your options are yes or no, true or false, then you will tick yes or you will tick no according to according to how many hours you study. If you study more than 8 hours, then you will tick yes. If no, then you will tick no. Okay, so these are close-ended questions where the probable answer is already given and you have to choose from a probable answer. Okay, and if I ask another question that if you have to rate your stress during exams on a scale of 10, how much will you rate your stresses? So you have to rate in a scale of 10, so you will rate 5 or 6, 7, 8, 10, whatever according to you is the right answer. So here also a probable answer is given. You cannot write whatever you want to. Okay, so these are your close-ended type of questions. Okay, so uh, like I already said that sometimes survey is conducted by sending questionnaire by mail, or sometimes I can distribute pamphlets among you all, like that also it is it is conducted. A questionnaire method saves your time, it is cost effective, but again uh, there can be poor responses from the respondents. If I send you a mail, so many of you may not reply me or answer to me, so that is one drawback of questionnaire survey. Now let us talk about telephone surveys. So surveys are also conducted through telephone. I already told you that through video calls or through phone calls. So now you can you may get some questions through SMS also. So these kind of surveys, it helps in reducing time, but however since the respondents do not know the interviewer, uh, this in this technique what happens is that the respondents are uncooperative, or they are reluctant, or they give very superficial answers. I'm sure that sometimes you must have gotten calls asking you different kinds of questions like we are conducting the survey, we want to know your opinion about this kind of product or this kind of issues, and then sometimes we don't really feel like answering those kind of questions. Sometimes we do, but then because we don't know the interviewer personally, so we don't feel like okay. So it can be so that there can be some reluctance from our side, we can be superficial with our answers. Okay, but again there are definitely advantages also, because it is it helps in reducing time. So that is one advantage, and we all know that every method has its own advantage and disadvantage. Okay, so in this kind of telephone surveys you can gather informations about gender, income level, education level, and use it in your research work. So So we have talked about survey methods and different kinds of methods which are used in survey researches. So a survey method has several advantages. First, information can be gathered quickly and efficiently from thousands of persons. Second, since surveys can be conducted quickly, public opinions on new issues can be obtained almost as soon as issue arises. But then again, if there are advantages, if there are pros, there will be cons as well. So there are some limitations of a survey too. First, people may give inaccurate information because of memory lapses, or they do not want to reveal to the researcher whatever is being asked. And secondly, people sometimes offer responses they think the researcher wants to hear, rather than their honest opinions. Okay, so these are the limitations of survey research.